Hola mis amigos y bonjour mis amis. I think I said that correctly. This is Spanish Blueprints. If you don't know me yet, my name is Joshua, and a big goal I have for this channel is to get as many people fired up to learn the Spanish language as possible. And for those who are learning Spanish, to give you as many effective tips to learn this beautiful language. In this video, I'm sharing with you how I am learning 2 languages at one time. One big reason for this is to show you where your Spanish learning journey can take you. Also, so you can have some ideas and some different methods for learning 2 languages at one time. I first started learning French January of 2021 for about half a day. I watched one YouTube video on how to pronounce the vowels in the French language. After watching that video, I thought it was way too hard, and that basically ended my French learning journey of last year. But this year, I really wanted to make sure that I actually make an attempt to learn the French language, because I had a bad mentality beforehand. I thought that I could not learn French just because of one little video that I watched, right? But with the Spanish language, I have been studying for the past 3 years all on my own, and I've been doing fairly well. So the first thing that I did was go on Amazon, then also go into some bookstores and buy some French learning resources. I have a dictionary here, French and English Pocket Dictionary. I got this book, so Say It Right in French, and this is all about helping you pronounce French words and phrases better. Then I got a grammar book, Easy French Step by Step, Master High Frequency Grammar for French Proficiency Fast. And then I just had to get an actual book in French as well, so I picked up Short Stories in French for Beginners. And obviously I didn't know any French at all at the beginning of this year, but this was for motivation, because I knew if I actually dedicated myself to learning this language, then I would be able to read this book maybe sometime this year and be able to actually understand it. Other resources that I used at the beginning of this year were ones I was already familiar with. So I was using YouTube videos, I was listening to podcasts on Spotify, I was using flashcards like these, and also sticky notes. Then I also started to take italki lessons as well. Now, I wasn't really sure how to actually manage my time in between both of these languages, but basically with Spanish, I was doing my normal routine. So I was also taking italki lessons for Spanish, and that was primarily just having conversations with different tutors. And then, of course, I was thinking in Spanish throughout the day. I was talking with my friends in Spanish, whether that was texting or on the phone, listening to music in Spanish. As you can see with my Spanish studies, it was very much so a part of my life. And I was still dedicating a lot of time to study Spanish. From the beginning of February to the end of March, I took 7 French italki lessons. In addition to that, my biggest goal for each day was to complete a French Duolingo lesson as well. So that was fairly easy to manage for a few weeks until I started to get very exhausted, because I was trying to balance my italki lessons for Spanish and then also these italki lessons for French. And although it doesn't seem like it was a lot, for me it was, and I think just because I was a complete beginner of the French language, and this was the first time that I was trying to learn 2 languages all at the same time. So I kind of underestimated how much energy that it was going to take out of me, because I would try to take one italki lesson, let's say like on Monday or something like that for Spanish, and then have my French italki lesson on a Thursday. The weird thing was I actually wasn't studying French very intensively in between these italki lessons, but it was still taking a lot of energy out of me. So then I stopped doing my italki lessons for French, but I was still doing them for Spanish. So now my main source for studying French was Duolingo, and then also using my grammar book as well. Not too much of podcasts, because I got kind of bored with listening to the Coffee Break French podcast, because for me it's kind of difficult to try to focus on French grammar and actually understand it if I'm just listening to it. I actually need to actually read it and kind of write it out on my own, because that's kind of like the best way for me to learn. So then I kind of stepped away from the podcast and then primarily focusing on Duolingo for the next few months. So really, I was doing the least amount of studying possible for French while still focusing primarily on Spanish, because I didn't really want to decrease the amount that I was studying Spanish, because I felt like I was going to decrease my listening skills, my reading skills, and my speaking skills, right? Just because I wasn't going to be studying as heavily. But I've had one friend tell me recently that you can definitely maintain a language and start to focus on another one, in this case, French. Embarrassingly enough, the next few months were actually very difficult for me when it came to my French studies because of how inconsistent I was. There was many days where I actually wasn't even doing one Duolingo lesson. And I say it's embarrassing because it only takes, 5 or so minutes to do it. It really showed me at this time that I was being extremely lazy and that I actually wasn't being very serious about learning French. I wasn't actually trying to reach my goal of, trying to be conversational in this language, and that I also wasn't balancing very well two languages at one time. So that's when I really started to make the decision, am I going to learn Spanish only, or am I going to try to learn both at the same time? Because at this point, I wasn't even studying French that much, so it didn't seem very useful for me to continue with it if I was going to be so lazy and not review my flashcards, not make new ones, and not try to increase my knowledge of French grammar and increase my speaking skills. I also started to realize how important discipline and consistency is for a language learner, because it was very difficult for me to actually start to study French every single day again, because I had a long period of time where I was being very lazy and I wasn't really dedicated to learning French at all. So I had to build up that discipline, because being disciplined with the Spanish language, I didn't have any issues with that at all because I've been studying Spanish on my own for the past 3 years. So there was no issue with that. But then when it came to combining both of these languages together, in my opinion, it's a completely different level of discipline necessary to balance both of these languages. Thankfully, I didn't quit French too soon and I got more serious. And this happened in the month of June of this year. And this is also a really good language learning hack that I would recommend that you do as well, because, well, in this particular notebook, I was just writing down how I was feeling a particular day, what I studied, what I feel like I should be doing more of. For example, June 30th, I wrote, I'm finally starting to be more consistent with studying French. Primarily videos about vocab words are my go-to study resource. So this is something that has helped me a lot to reflect, and then also a reason why I'm able to have this video as well, because I've been journaling a lot about my French learning journey, and I also do the same thing for Spanish as well. One big game changer for me was realizing all the similarities that there were in between the French language and the Spanish language. So then I started to make a lot of connections a lot easier with French, and then the grammar structure and the sentence structure started to click a lot easier. And then I also got advice from one of my friends who's also a language learner that I should start to listen to French instructional videos in Spanish. So that's exactly what I did. I went onto YouTube and I found some native Spanish speakers who spoke Spanish during their videos, but they were teaching French. And that has helped me so much during this French learning journey to be able to balance French and to be able to balance Spanish a lot easier. And then I didn't just stop there. I started to write my flashcards in a similar fashion as well. So with my flashcards now, on one side I have in French, and then on the other side I have in Spanish. So that helps so I don't translate to my native tongue, which is English, but I can stay in Spanish mode and I can stay in French mode. So all the knowledge that I have for Spanish has really helped me to learn French. One big thing I wish I did at the beginning of this year was think in French. How simple was that? Because I was already doing that for Spanish all day long, but it didn't click into my head to do with French, because again, this was going to be actually very difficult for me to do because my vocabulary is such at a low level. So there's only so much that I can think about. But then once I started to do that, I was also trying to connect that with Spanish. So I have Spanish and I have French thoughts going on all in my head at the same time. So let's say if I'm thinking in Spanish right now about what I'm seeing, I'm cooking, for example, so estoy cocinando. So I think that in Spanish, but then I try to think of, oh, what's the equivalent of that in French? And the same thing if I'm looking at different things around my apartment or, basically wherever I go. All right, I know what it is in Spanish. Now, what is it in French? And now this has helped me to really stay in French mode and increasing my consistency with thinking, and then also this translation method, because I want to be able to get to the point where I know enough vocabulary in French where I can read, like, say, like a page or something like that in a book, and then I'm reading it in French, but then I'm translating it into into Spanish. So that's the next goal right now. So that also pushes me even more so to increase my vocabulary. As you can see with this goal, I'm already really excited about it. Like I can't wait to learn more French vocabulary so I can start to translate in between French and Spanish. And I think that'll be really interesting because number one, I've never done that before, but then that's also going to allow me to have some very interesting conversations with French speakers and Spanish speakers. Let's say if we were all in the same room together. Now that would be pretty wild. I would say right now, I don't have a very strict schedule when it comes to learning French. And when it comes to learning Spanish, I kind of just try to study them whenever I have time. So with French, I usually try to review some flashcards in the morning and then also at nighttime. And then during the day, I just try to listen to some French podcasts. So completely in French, even though I don't understand maybe 90% of what's going on, but I'm just trying to get accustomed to how the French language sounds. In addition to French podcasts, when I'm at home and I'm cleaning the dishes or I'm trying to cook, I try to put something on YouTube that is also native French content. And then to balance that with Spanish, I would say there's not too much balance in general, honestly, just because I have so many goals when it comes to learning Spanish. So I don't finish all the study items I would like to do in Spanish. Like some days I would like to sit down for 30 minutes, watch a YouTube video, and take notes. And there are many days where I actually can't get that done just because of time. So right now, I'm feeling pretty proud of myself for how I am learning 2 languages at one time because I didn't quit yet, number one. And I would say the most challenging thing for me right now when it comes to trying to juggle these 2 languages is trying to somehow manage both of my passions. And even more so because I love Spanish music. I listen to it every single day, all day long. But when it comes to my French studies, I find it difficult to turn off that Spanish music. And just because I'm starting this new French learning journey doesn't mean my Spanish learning journey is decreasing. For example, just a few months ago, I started taking my dance classes for the first time. So salsa dance classes and also bachata dance classes. There's a lot of things going on in my language learning journey. Now you have a little insight into how I've been learning 2 languages at one time. But if you want to hear more about my French italki lesson experience, make sure that you watch this video. Also, check out the links in the description box of this video for more resources on how to learn the Spanish language. Comment below if you have questions about learning 2 languages at the same time. Te veo en el próximo video.